How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from the Sponge 1000, and in this video, we're going to be focusing on this tropical wave that has a moderate chance of developing into Tropical Storm Danielle within the next 5 days. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. So, to begin, now this does have a little bit of a better chance of impacting the Caribbean, as well as the computer models have been leaning more towards a southern track, which would bring the Caribbean islands more involved, potentially with heavier rain. So there's definitely something to keep in mind now for the Caribbean. But in terms of the probability that this tropical wave does develop into Tropical Storm Danielle, we do see that it hasn't changed from yesterday. We still do see that the formation chance is still at a medium 40% chance, and over the next 48 hours, it's a low 20% chance. Now, I'd consider this somewhat good news because I did sort of expect the chance to increase a little bit today, but the National Hurricane Center is still maintaining its idea that this still has a medium chance of developing a 40% chance, so it hasn't risen from yesterday, which I consider good news, and hopefully it stays that way or even decreases as this heads further westward. But we need to take a look at what the computer models are stating before we could really jump to that conclusion if there's a possibility the chance of Tropical Storm Danielle does lower over the next 5 days. Now, taking a look at the tropical wave that we're paying close attention to right here, it's currently located just to the southwest of the Cape Verde Islands at this time, and we do see that there isn't a ton of convection surrounding it. We do have a small area where the thunderstorm activity is prevalent. However, it isn't over a large area, and if I were to show you guys the water vapor imagery loop, we do see that there isn't a high amount of rotation either, as these clusters of thunderstorms are pretty much just developing but not really showing any signs of rotation around one center of circulation. And if we were to take a look at the cloud tops, or at least the outflow of this storm, we do see that there isn't a ton of wind shear over it at this time outside of the extreme southern portion of this storm, where we do see the outflow sort of drift more towards the west as a result of stronger wind shear that's just to the south of it. However, at least for the core of this storm, we do see that it's avoiding wind shear for the most part. And in terms of the stable air, we do see that it's under a fairly moist environment right now, so it's going to gradually try to organize itself over the next several hours and into days, and that could enhance the possibility that Tropical Storm Danielle forms within the next 48 hours or potentially the next 5 days. It just needs to organize itself a little bit, and for low pressure systems, that does take a while for it to develop a small center of circulation depending the circumstances. So this could take several days, and hopefully it takes as long as possible. So if hostile conditions were to come through as this heads further westward, then by the time it could organize itself, it'll already reach a hostile environment to the point where it won't be able to organize itself enough to really attain tropical storm status at all. So that is a hope that this area of thunderstorm activity does take a while for it to really develop a small center of circulation where rotation is prevalent. So we're just going to need to hope that this doesn't organize itself very fast and this storm doesn't become vertically stacked when it comes to the upper levels and the lower level winds. Now, let's now take a look at the GFS model, and compared to yesterday, the GFS model is leaning more towards a weaker storm, where we do see the millibar pressure pretty much drop to nothing less than 1,007 millibars, which is definitely good news, because if taking a look at the computer models yesterday, the GFS model wanted to take this low pressure system down to the 990s, which would be considered a strong tropical storm, but the GFS model is leaning more towards a weaker tropical storm, which definitely could help the chance that it's less likely that we'll see Tropical Storm Danielle, but we still do see a lot of moisture with it, and it moves a little bit further southward. So, but at this point, the GFS model isn't necessarily expecting a tropical storm to be just north of the Caribbean islands, but it's moving just far south enough to where the Caribbean islands are experiencing an enhanced amount of rainfall. So even if this doesn't approach you guys as Tropical Storm Danielle, you need to still watch out for the possibility of heavy rainfall associated with this low pressure system. Now, taking a look at the European model isn't much different from what it was saying yesterday. Taking a look at the 12Z run, we do see that the European model is still maintaining the fact that this storm will remain, at least this tropical wave will remain relatively weak and won't really strengthen much more than what it is right now, as a millibar pressure is pretty much hovering around 1,010 millibars without any sort of notable strengthening as this heads further westward. Now, there are several reasons why. First, we need to take a look at the relative humidity. We do still see a good amount of stable air just to the north of this low pressure system, which I did state in my past few videos that will be the key in determining if Tropical Storm Danielle does form or not. And we do see the European model is expecting more dry air just to the north of it and a less concentrated amount of humidity around the center of circulation for this storm to really strengthen as it heads further westward, because there's just too much stable air to really create a convective environment for the pressure to lower and the wind speed to increase along the surface. So as a result, the European model isn't expecting much strengthening at all. The GFS model is still expecting a decent amount of strengthening, but it isn't strengthening much, as again the dry air will be the issue. And I think another thing too will be the wind shear, especially as this heads further westward. If I were to show you guys the wind shear forecasts over the next 5 days. So if we were to take a look at that, this is where the storm is located right now, and currently it's under a lightly sheared environment as a result of the existence of two upper level highs, one located just so west of it and one located pretty much right over the storm. This tropical wave is experiencing a light amount of wind shear, which is the reason why this does have a possibility of developing, a moderate possibility of developing into tropical storm. But as I were to continue to move westward, we do see that the wind shear increase mainly because it's gonna move a little bit further northward, so it's gonna feel more of the influence associated with this upper level low in the middle of the Atlantic. So as a result, this would weaken as it heads further westward if the GFS model's projection of this wind shear stays, which is so uncertain at this point because we're going 120 hours out and a lot could change. But at this point, it seems like the GFS model sort of wants to fizzle it out, just like the European model, which certainly is good news. But there's still that possibility that, hey, maybe this upper level low moves a little bit further northwards to where this won't experience as much wind shear, or we do see a little bit less dry air just to the north of it. So still factors that have yet to be seen, but at this point, there's still a moderate chance that we could see Tropical Storm Danielle. Again, really all depends on how fast this tropical wave is able to vertically stack itself when it comes to the wind direction and wind speed between the upper levels and the mid levels of the atmosphere. And for some tropical cyclones, it's quick for it to organize itself and become vertically stacked when it comes to the wind direction. However, for others, it's a little bit more difficult, since a lot of tropical waves initially start as very disorganized when it comes to the wind direction and wind speed with height. So it's going to need to organize itself fairly quickly for this to have a very good possibility of developing into Tropical Storm Danielle. But at this point, it's moderate, as we just need to wait and see how fast it's able to organize itself and if it could avoid enough wind shear and dry air. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. Now, I'm taking a look at what the ensemble members are stating at this time, the GFS model. Now, they're leaning a little bit more southward than before, so this could put the Caribbean more at risk, where we do see some ensemble members wanting to take it close to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. So it's suddenly something now, at least be aware of in the Caribbean, as there is a good possibility this could come close to you guys if this were to move further southward. Now, here's my forecast when it comes to the possibility of Tropical Storm Danielle. So I did make a difference in the forecast. In the projected path, I did shift the projected path a little bit further southward to where potentially Puerto Rico could get involved. Caribbean impacts are more likely as of today. We're just going to need to wait and see first if this does actually end up developing into Tropical Storm Danielle within the next 5 days to really determine the impacts for the Caribbean. But there's still uncertainty even for the projected path, because you have to remember that only 2/3 of the time the storm stays within the projected path. So there's still that 1/3 of a possibility this moves out of this projected path, which is a pretty huge gap when it comes to a projected path. So that's at least something to be aware of, that a lot could change. So you need to stay updated regarding this tropical wave moving westward. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys all have a great day.